Okay, should we do, so you've already got the slides and everything there.
I have the slides. Dan was gonna come back here because he didn't actually get me connected to the.
Okay, well, I'm online, so I can always do it from here if we need to.
Okay, that works. I don't care what
Yeah.
machine we use.
That's as good as it gets, right? But I can push this on. And
On as a.
I should be on, I think I'm on the speed. Oh, but if you're gonna join, then just join.
The camera looks like it's got the cover blocking it part of it.
It's not the cover, it's just really, really bright in here. But thank you. All right, I'm gonna switch my camera off for a second. And okay.
That's right. It's easier to use your machine. You said he was on his way over.
Okay. We'll give it, we've got a couple of minutes. And if you don't show up, we can-
Yeah. The only thing that's supposed to look like he gave me a machine was way over PowerPoint. So first Friday, so I'm able to show the slides. That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. And I have mine also, but yes.
The- Woohoo, it works. All right.
Sure, we are.
We're using mine.
We're
Fine.
That works. So you're good, they're good. Rick's good. Okay, just close this. We can use that later. Don't worry about it. That's my spare. One. Good to see everyone here. I'll be talking, I'll be talking university stuff more, so. Thanks. Yeah.
No, not that one. Slideshow. Okay, I want to try and get this so that we can. I think that works.
I guess that was difficult, it's not going to work.
Okay, so we do have quite a few people online. So let's not have all back to this direction because I'm using this. I believe that the oh. So, Pouya, do you have slides as well, or are you just going to? Oh, it's already up here. Excellent. Okay. And Chris, do you have slides, or you do have slides?
No, I don't.
Okay, then that's all easy. Okay, so we're running the Zoom off of my computer, so just don't be super quiet when you're talking because it has to reach this microphone, or I can just shout.
That was a potential. I'll let you.
I know, this is why I'm saying it. And actually, first off, sorry. My name is Speck. I am, as you already know, a member of the AA task force, and I'll be also one. But this session is on planning in colleges and universities. And first on our list of speakers for today is Chris Harris from RIT.
Hello, my name is Chris Harris. I'm the Director of Community Relations at RIT. I'm a relative newbie to higher education, but have been in the Rochester area on the political governance of the world for about 15 years now. My role on the Eclipse was kind of a surprise. It was one of the first things assigned to me when I joined RIT, and it's becoming a fascinating way to learn higher education institution work. I recently, in August, had our first meeting at a presidential level to talk about the solar eclipse. We did so on the first day of classes. It was fun to capture people's attention about an event first day of school. A couple of thoughts that we've had on RIT's end for how we want to kind of position ourselves. One, our provost came from Clemson. They weren't in the direct path of the previous one, but she saw at Clemson that the university became a hub for not just the students, but family members of faculty, family members of staff. It became like a point where people that wanted to be together gather. And it looks like what we're going to do in terms of the day of the year folks is really focusing on the extended RIT of the students, faculty, staff, and their families. There are some conversations about targeted alumni out there. Some development because there's the opportunities to fund it. But we look at here. Branding, all that kind of stuff is again an opportunity. But our leadership really wants to make sure that we're going to do something that's focused on our community. We also feel that if we get our 20,000 or so folks in one place, that'll reduce the community burden on every other. We like the city are looking at doing something, some sort of concert festival party that happens post Eclipse, Eclipse Fest, generically. I mean, but in doing something in that 4 to 5 o'clock window to try to bring people in place for.
I just interrupt for a second. Can I bring you this way a little bit, just because we're trying to bridge the gap? I don't want to make this super formal, but people need to be able to hear.
Oh, no, of
It's
course.
a little quiet. Just want to hang out over here.
Obstrokes of what we're doing. We are, we're forming a subcommittee to talk about the educational outreach, how we get our IT's expertise out in the field, how we coordinate with our partners at the University of Rochester and other educational institutions. Working with Dan on kind of formulating a request for information, how we kind of distribute and farm out our expertise. Internally pulling a list together of just which faculty and staff have interest in this area that could talk about it, but also looking for some interesting, we're a school full of engineers. What are some other projects connected to this that can work that are relevant that maybe aren't your traditional astronomy lines? We also have the NCID, where they're looking at staff programming and hard of hearing programming, making sure that what we're doing is not only inclusive at RIT, but making sure that expertise is able to get out in the community as well. In my wheelhouse of a community relations specialist, figuring out what everybody else is doing, having these conversations, thinking about where we have shared strengths, but also trying not to step on any other toes with the city's planning and things like that. So just kind of being a conduit for information. We're still in like the very early stage planning. Like I said, I got a positive response from the leadership council at RIT, but it's not necessarily the highest priority just yet, though our provost is really engaging on the academic side, which I think is going to really get the ball moving. Students, generally speaking, I haven't talked to any that have had much in the way of awareness on this, but student life at RIT is excited to see what kind of programming we can do in that. Everything from solar glass distribution on freshman move-in day in the spring semester, to just thinking about where this fits into like larger programming. I think the interesting thing for us is we have a lot of interesting alumni expertise out there in the world, and really trying to find a way to capture that energy. I mean, we've got alumni in NASA. We have our faculty was the first person to get data out of the James Webb Telescope. We've got some really cool people and experts in this space, and helping them like making an appropriate channel for us to get them plugged into the outside world, but also kind of highlight the cool stuff that we do that people might not know about. We really see this as a branding and marketing opportunity as much as a great event. It's really kind of my little update on what RIT is out there doing. I'm really excited to learn from other folks as to who was on your relevant task forces, who's at the table that maybe you're not thinking of. our faculties, our facilities office was the first group on campus that I talked to that was actually aware that this is happening, which was great. They're also not super excited about having a giant event on campus that day, but we'll get them there eventually. But in just thinking about, who aren't we thinking about, or what were some lessons learned from previous eclipses? Like, we really wish we had more engagement from corporate or from legal counsel. Like, actually, that'd be a terrible thing. But who should be involved that came in the game late that we can get ahead of early? And then I'm really interested, especially with the University of Rochester, in making sure we're in sync with each other. All the universities in the regions, we don't need to invent wheels individually. We can do, there's been previous experience, obviously, but if other schools in the area are doing cool stuff, I'll share all my contact information, but let us know what you're doing. And if we can help and if we can share resources, whatever we can do, we're feeling very collaborative about this. So anything RIT can do for the greater good on this, please use me as a resource. And thank you for the time.
Okay, so next up is Pouya, and I'm not even going to attempt to say your last name.
Yeah, Seifzadeh. So it's
Seifzadeh.
like Seifzadeh.
Okay, that's easy. I can remember that. And you have slides. Apparently we didn't live stream the first part. Sorry about that. Okay, that's working. Do you want me to do the, okay, just arrows?
Yep. Okay, so my name is Pouya Seifzadeh. I am an associate professor of business, so probably not necessarily belong to this to this group in the way that most others do. But I'm here because, well, at the School of Business, we're trying to get more involved into community engagement, and the Eclipse was seen as a way for us to play our role there. So the slides that I'm presenting are the slides that my colleagues put together. Unfortunately, they can't be here, so I will try my very best to elaborate on those, but I will also explain some of the things that we did to put together a task force in this process. So just said the arrows, right? Okay, so we decided that we right off the bat, so we were fortunate that before the pandemic, we had Deborah deliver a talk that generated a lot of interest within our community. So that was our first step to introduce faculty and students to the Eclipse, what it could mean to us, what it could mean to sort of having some sort of partnership across the college. We put together a task force, and we were also fortunate that this entire coincidentally, at the same time, we were going through a revision of our mission statement at Geneseo. So we were trying to incorporate some of those elements of sort of the community engagement, global awareness, and somehow we were able to tie that to this entire Eclipse to bring in gain more interest, not just from the faculty, but also buying from the leadership. One of the things that has helped us in this process was that two of our associate provosts are very directly involved in this, and then we have the provost. So having those individuals engaged as a driving force was much more helpful as opposed to if it was just a faculty trying to organize things. We were able to bring this into to the attention of the president, and while it's not official yet, we're still thinking about making the Eclipse the main theme for our 2023-2024 academic year. We're still working on that, what it means in terms of developing curriculum, what it means in terms of the activities that we have on the college. And then we also tying that into some of our community outreach programs that are already in place. Now, our approach has been not to develop necessarily a lot of new initiatives, but build on our existing initiatives and redefine them in a way that it sets up fits with our let's say with the Eclipse. And these are some examples. For instance, there has been as we were revising the curriculum, we have our new the curriculum is called Globe. it's Geneseo learning outcomes for a baccalaureate education, right? So we try to sort of introduce some lessons. So these are 7 lessons that have already been created. They will be included in part of our curriculum during the 2023-2024 academic year. We have also developed a 1-credit course, which is open to the students in but it's also going to be available to the community. This is going to be part of our community engagement, which is we're also thinking about adding some workshops. The students need to complete some, they call them gold workshops as part of their graduation requirements. We're trying to sort of figure out what kinds of workshops can be introduced, not necessarily all of them in the area of science, but also, for instance, what does a phenomenon like this, the social impact that it has, but it needs in a way to bring more awareness to our students. More into curriculum. So the astronomy classes, since 2 years ago, they already started to incorporate some. They were very enthusiastic about this. Aaron Steinhauser, he has already introduced these Eclipse related topics into the course. Lyndon Smith, for instance, he's in the English department. He is introducing some sort of poetry which focus on the eclipse in terms of workshops and in terms of within his teaching. Our music students are working on some sort of performance that they are going to deliver around the time of the eclipse. And again, we are also thinking about what are other ways that we can introduce the social, religious, and other forms of impacts that the let's say the eclipse has, and bring that to introduce that to our students. In terms of community outreach, that 1-credit course, we are introducing that not just to the students, but also we are seen as a rural campus. So we're trying to bring that, make that accessible to people outside the college. Some of the things that we're working on right now that are in the development, we thought that we're trying to partner up with our enrollment office for them to sponsor bringing in underprivileged students from the city school district, bringing them into having some sort of talks and workshops, or introduction to the scientific concepts at Geneseo. One of the problems that we have is that we have a very diverse faculty, but not such diverse student body. And it's a shame that being so close to Rochester, we have not been able to bring them in. One of the things that we have learned is that a lot of these students, they either don't have the means or it's not very easy for them to come and visit our campus during our open house events. We're trying to get the enrollment to to help us in bringing them in, sponsoring that, and hopefully in picking Geneseo as one of their. We already have an adopted business program that is in place. The adopted business program is where our business students work with local small business owners, whether it's new product development, marketing. We have already let them know that this is an opportunity for those small business owners to whether introduce new products and ramp up their marketing. Those students the adopted business program is going to help us get more open some of those doors to those business owners. We have also, we're thinking about opening up the campus. We are down 390, so there's going to be a lot of people that may prefer to be on our campus than to be in a more crowded place at that time of day. So we're thinking about maybe opening up the campus. We visited different areas on the campus to see what is the best place. And we're also working with our communications to see if we can get our faculty and other people involved in the Eclipse task force to have appearances, whether it's in the radio or writing articles, to be more informative. So this is generally what we're doing right now. It's any comments are very welcome. We would like to learn more.
I love that adoption idea. I love the idea of getting your non-art majors involved in this. It just occurred to me that I need to talk to Saunders, because I think there's a ton of capstone opportunities for our students to help businesses think about what these could mean to them. I know that Rochester, some of the businesses are totally unaware of this. I think that's a real great idea to get some outside of the science section.
Thank you. And we will be very happy if you have any experiences to learn from you or sharing the experiences that we have.
Okay, I think I'm the last person to speak, I think, and then we can have more chat. Okay, so you already know who I am. So for the 2017 Eclipse, I was working for the University of Missouri. And actually I started working with them in 2002. So, you know, as we got closer, I was already a fairly well-established faculty member. But my experience in working across the curriculum, across different divisions, was it was very hit or miss, and it was very much, you know, how do you pull people in so that they can actually get that this is going to be a big deal. So, for instance, I had no problem getting some of the animal and plant science. So the zoo is essentially an ag school, and so animal and plant science is a big deal. No problem getting them on board, and we have a bunch of research farms, and they're like, oh, yeah, we can see what the animals do, and we actually had videos set up so we could watch what the animals were doing. Did some experiments with, you know, plants even react in the time that they came. No problem getting them engaged at all. But then there were people in my own department.
What was that? They couldn't hear you.
Physicists without the astro piece, who were like, well, why is this such a big deal? I mean, I don't. Okay. At the same time, that buy-in from different parts of the university. So, for instance, you know, actually, I went around and gave talks to different parts of the university, and the business school was like, oh, we can do a project with you know, so it's actually an MBA class who they did a project on how to market this. And so this was, you know, bringing it into their curriculum, and that was really cool. So it was very much a hit or miss thing, but the upper administration getting people on board. Now, bear in mind that that particular university had a lot of upper administration turmoil over higher time there. Not least was in 2015, there were protests on campus related to racism. Caused there to be the removal of both the president and the chancellor. And so suddenly there's all new leadership. Once that turned over, I got a lot more buy-in. And I don't know how much of that was getting closer and how much of that was, you know, we need something happy to show, because it's a great opportunity to kind of turn around what the image was. In terms of community outreach, really it was me and my students. I'm sure Lanika can attest to this. Lanika was one of my grad students. She'd already graduated before we got to the actual Eclipse, but you know, it was really, but it was still engaging with as many people as possible. You may have heard me mention yesterday that I had a beer named after me. That was one of the local microbreweries, but we worked with them and did a number of events. We did events with Columbia, Missouri is very arty. So we did events with artists where, you know, there was one where I was doing a light and color demo, and that was paired with an artist who had people doing pictures where it was their prediction of what the corona would look like. But it was, you know, they were learning about how light and color works and what they're going to be seeing. So, you know, but that was largely me and my students. There wasn't much support from outside of that. The support that I got came from the local amateur astronomers up until about 6 months out. So now, fast forward, And everything went fine, and, you know, well, and there were some other things that are unique to that particular circumstance. It was the very first day of classes. And so that really complicated some of the logistics. And so we didn't open up campus because we were gonna have a whole bunch of people who didn't know what anything was, and, you know, let's keep campus for us, right? But, you know, now I'm at a completely different university. My provost is very pro astronomy, and I still don't have much traction. I'm getting that. Now, some of that is pandemic, right? Because I arrived, pandemic happened, and you know. Yeah, but it was in a different state, so, you know, that news has not traveled yet. So, you know, my feeling is that, you know, for all of us, and we can learn from each other, and there are things that, and there's one other thing that I just want to mention that I think went really well, but I think we also need to recognize that we all have very different circumstances. So I might have done something that worked really well for me that wouldn't work for you, and vice versa. So it's kind of getting that ideas from each other, but then working out what, it's not a one size fits all. Now, the one thing I will mention, especially since Pouya was talking about the outreach to schools. So what I did in 2017, and I'm doing now, but it's a little different, was I connected with the middle school and specifically the 7th grade teachers, because in the next generation science standards, they learn about light and physics, light and waves and color in 7th grade. And the problem with doing outreach to schools is the teachers are already so overwhelmed with the amount of stuff, that the amount of content they have to deliver, that if you can fit your work, your outreach into their curriculum, you are going to be much more welcomed. And it also then is, it's that across the curriculum thing. This is how, so I do it as spectroscopy, okay? I do a demo where I show them what light looks like from different types of light bulbs. And then I talk about how that relates to what they're learning in class. But I also talk about, so for the sun, you get the full rainbow, but for the corona, it's like this, and help them connect that to how we do science. But by connecting it to what they actually are doing in the classroom and coordinating with the teachers, so you're going in at the time they're learning that. And that takes a lot of effort, but that's the place where, you know, what I'm working on now is having an army of students. It was just me. And now I'm working on basically training up an army of students. And the advantage of students is, especially for where I am, this may not be so true in the Rochester area, but where I am, you know, my university and my city is 60% Hispanic. And there is a huge advantage to having near peers in age, but also in demographics doing the presentation. And so I want to have students, and most of our students are fairly local. So having people that even went to those schools, going back into those schools, wants to make those connections. Think about how it fits with, and I assume that New York does next generation science standards, but you should check that because Texas does not. Yeah, Texas is good. But you know, Texas has its own standards. Actually, there's more astronomy in the Texas standards than there are in the next generation standards. So I'm good. But you know, it's something that now I connect in with 8th grades because that's actually when they do astronomy and spectrum. But you can also connect into other levels. Like I just did the presentation for my son is in 10th grade and doing chemistry. Spectroscopy. So there's ways you can connect on. But that is in terms of those community connections, thinking about how you can make it so it's not a burden on the people you're trying to help. All right, I'll stop talking and open this up to what questions people have. You've heard from, these are very different institutions.
I'm really interested in how, I hope everybody out there, and in how universities copy each other. Or here's what I mean. It often seems that for people who are not like the chancellor or the provost or whatever, being able to say, SUNY Geneseo's done this is really, really useful. This is informal observation on my part, not being in this environment. And that it's a little less of, first of all, it shows that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but it also is like, see what the Joneses, look what their car looks like. And so that's my informal thing, but so if that, I'm interested in you and everybody else in here, if that's also your perception, and if so, what would be useful to you for all of us to share as we're learning about things like what SUNY Geneseo is doing?
Question I get from everybody at RIT is, do you know what the University of Rochester is doing?
Yeah.
Literally, regardless of department, division, faculty, it's, I mean, what is our nearest peer? Don't get our other peer, like, no one's asking me what MIT, those are outside the path. But like everything, every one of my conversations, but who are you of our school? So you get that's a huge factor for us. I mean, it is keeping up with. So we want to be like 1% better than everybody else, you know, we know what they're doing. But no, that internal competition kind of stuff, well, I think it's silly. Because, you know, when I informed RIT that other schools were thinking and talking about this, they decided, well, if other people are doing it, we need to start doing it. Exaggerate how much of the people are doing so far. But look, I'm just trying to get my horse to drink. But that's a great point and very, very useful. And look, if someone's doing something cool, we don't want to be left behind. This is for us, you know, I had a little bit of a challenge getting enrollment management to see this as much of an opportunity. To your recent point though, RIT's K through 12 program is really looking at middle school now. I want to call Donna, like, as soon as this is over, to talk about, you know, how we can work, if next gen is New York, because we're doing a lot of middle school outreach right now in math and science. That's a perfect fit, and there's an enrollment improvement pipeline.
And that's exactly, I mean, this is something that I'm a department chair, so I care about recruitment because that's how I keep. But middle school is exactly, no, but anybody teaching science, middle school is where you have to get them. If, you know, it doesn't matter whether they follow the next generation standards or not. School is, if they aren't already excited about science, if they aren't already thinking about, I need to do all the math. Because if you want to do physics, you have to do calculus. And if you aren't ready to go into calculus as soon as you get into college, because not everywhere has it in their school, then you are going to take so much longer, and especially for the socioeconomic issues, it's just then a no-go. And so middle school is absolutely well, which is why I targeted the middle, it's where they first get into proper science. They've done fun things. Middle school, they're actually learning proper science. And it's where you can have that impact and say, this is what you can do with this. And they can get really excited. And so upper level elementary is also a possibility, depending, but definitely middle school. And like I say, you can fit this into what they're learning anyway. And that's a huge trick to, you know, it's like, look, we did this. And you do have that effect of when you are, when kids are thinking about, I want to do this, it's like, well, where do you want to go? Oh, I want to go to that school because we had that really cool demo from them. And that sticks. So, you know, it serves both purposes. It's getting them ready to do science, which is already a useful thing, even if they don't come to you. But then, you know, hopefully helping to recruit. So, yeah, definitely, you know, I would push that as hard as possible.
I also wanted to add in terms of peers, different universities. We are small university, St. Francis, but Penn State. But you also, and how we can. So we try what it is we can take from it.
Yeah.
I'd be worth repeating for the.
I will. I don't know if everybody had that, but basically, we have a question. Basically, it was, you know, you want to know what your peers are doing or what your neighboring universities are doing. You don't necessarily have to copy them. In fact, you may want to thinking about how to do this. Mario, can you?
Protecting the city of Kyiv here, there were a number of missiles fired here, they were all taken out. In the west.
There we go. All right. We have a question on here from, oh, Stuart's written it down. Let me read it. I am curious how my colleagues from state schools are dealing with budgetary issues, considering this is now and the eclipse isn't until 23-24.
I have. I've been asked a lot about some anticipated costs, but as far as I know, no formal like budget line items that are for this. I've been currently pricing glasses and all that kind of stuff, and obviously we're a private nonprofit, so we're different than my SUNY friends. I know Albany is going to be a mess next year, but no one wants to talk about money too hard yet. At my end.
Well, part of the reason that we're actually trying to tie this into what we already do is these budgetary issues. So we're trying to avoid as much as possible creating any new sort of initiatives that are going to be costly. So we tied into what we already do, and that is already included in our budget. And we're for cases like bringing students on field trips, we're tying that into the possible revenue generation. We had I was part of a revenue generation committee that we worked on last year, and we've been discussing enrollment and increasing enrollment, and we're just seeing this as an opportunity to at least get some buy-in from some other stakeholders within the campus. So yeah, we're trying to stay away as much as possible from adding costs, and so far that has helped bringing on more people on board.
I have a question for our friends from the SUNY
Actually, it's
Rockport.
your phone.
That is not my phone.
No, wait.
To our friends at SUNY Rockport, Stuart in the chat, and Aaron, you guys are gonna be right in the middle, like the path is right through Rockport. What's that gonna be like on top of a very small town having a lot of people potentially, but is there specific to your experience right on that path that you can share?
That's a great question.
I put you on the spot, I'm sorry.
I mean, we're certainly aware of that. I don't know whether we're any kind of destination for being on that path. Great in April. Like I hear people talking about the leaves and the trees and the birds. I'm like, people, you're lucky if we don't have snow on the ground still in mid-April.
From Stuart here from Brockport. Hi, Eric. From everything I've heard so far, regardless of snow or other weather factors, we should be expecting an increase in our population for at least the day, if not the weekend, as is the case with our colleagues at Geneseo. We're down pretty much a 2-lane road. So traffic is going to be an issue. The Main Street Bridge in Brockport is going to be out of commission in April of 2024. So there are all sorts of, I'd like to call them ancillary issues, but they're not really ancillary issues because they are very much going to impact us. But yeah, as we've all heard over the last couple of days, and however many other meetings you've attended, we can expect an increase of, one times our population to 3 times our population. So
Yeah, so
good luck to all of us.
So we have a couple of comments here. What's up?
Yes, I know it is maybe more specific to you, but wondering first, like, just if you could comment a little bit more about the comparison between working with just a couple of people and organizing kind of like outreach with that versus like this army, and also just like how did you go about like collecting an army of students?
Okay, I'm still working on it. And I had a very small menu platoon. And so, first of all, I'm now an army chair. So, my army is essentially the Society of Physics students and the graduate. So, that's where, and we have enough majors that's a sizable number of people. But we also have other people who then are seeing presentations. Oh, I'd love to come and learn that. So it's not necessarily just physics majors. We also have a lot of engineers, chemists, that sort of thing. So, and the students are much more apt to be into outreach than some of, especially older faculty. So that's a piece of it. The other thing is things like SPS are supposed to do great service work for them. And that means I don't need a budget. So I wanted to kind of bring this back to the budget question. So what we did at the zoo, and I haven't quite got this far yet, but I basically worked with the bookstore. At UTSA, they're less protective of the branding. They're still a little protective, but it's easier when you get the branding. They have been an SEC school, because football and everything. The branding is a big deal, and that caused all sorts of issues. But I worked with the bookstore, and so then actually the bookstore was on board really early, and I see this as you need to have some capital up front, buy stuff, but it's not that you're not going to make that money back. And so in terms of things like buying the glasses, you buy the glasses and then you sell them at $2 a piece. That's nice and cheap, but then you can afford to give some away. So what I was doing was I was selling them. I was traveling all over Missouri, so everybody loves the Mizzou branded stuff, selling them everywhere, and selling them through the bookstore. And then the money we made, but we could afford to especially the rural schools, need that many. I can then help those schools that don't have the budget. Columbia Public Schools could afford to buy 30,000 sets of glasses for every kid watching it. Some of the other school districts couldn't. So I saw this as more like the revenue generation. Not only are you doing the long-term version of that with recruiting and things, but also there are ways to, people want the branded stuff. Now that may not work so well if you don't have as big a name, and actually in South Texas, UTSA is big, but we have competition from these often. And so, it might not work as well, but so that's the piece of it that you can then do. And that's where having students doing some of the outreach also really helps, because they are really interested in that brand. Good question?
Well, I was just going to share for Rick Eames, New Hampshire Solar Eclipse Task Force. For Brockport, they have something unique that in this area only Brockport and Buffalo have, with the center line goes right through the Brockport School District. And we partnered with Sherwin-Williams Paints to actually paint wherever anyone wants to, a center line, tricorn black, extra white, the codes are right here. Brockport has a unique thing too. When I was visiting them on Thursday, there's a Sherwin-Williams paint store right there, right outside the school district.
You visited Brockport on Thursday?
Yeah. I was trying to go to the high school, but I realized, wow, it's not just one school. There's 5 or 6 right there.
Yeah, middle school, elementary.
Yeah, so if you go to Google Earth, total solar eclipse 2024, I think the line has got to go through a lot of schools, but in front of the high school, I think it goes right through the parking lot. So this is
It goes right over the high school, actually, and through their parking lot. It nicks our football field.
So that's
so we're there, yeah.
To follow it, put the line down. Now you're going to have people like me touring with the Eclipse Mobile next summer are going to want to go there and get a picture of the Eclipse Mobile on the center line, because that's what Eclipse Mobile wants to be. So there's lots of opportunities. And you could also partner with a school in Albuquerque, because that's where the annularity line goes through. So you can partner with them. And a great theme, what we're doing in New Hampshire is any school can graduate with enchantment under the sea, but only the class of 24 can graduate with enchantment under the eclipses, because they have 2 of them. So that's a great thing for the graduating class. Another thing we're doing with sociology students in New Hampshire to bring them in is having them interview people before the annular, between the annular and the total, and after the total. Because as Kate said, it's a transformative, transcendent experience, similar to astronauts, but most of us can't get off the planet, but we can have a similar type of experience observing a TSC. So I got lots of other stuff too, but if anyone has any questions, please take my card.
So my name's Priscilla. To my business colleague, you think you don't belong. So believe me, it's a little strange right now. However, the ties are, I work at the Eastman School of Music, which belong for partners with the University of Rochester. I know. Actually, also faculty at RIT. And I went to Mizzou and was there for the last eclipse, which is very strange. So to answer kind of all these questions, Doug's question with the partnering, because I work for a University of Rochester entity, and especially a pure example is just the pandemic, we're the only conservatory that did open in the entire country. Starting in August 2020, because music was a very deemed extremely dangerous during the coronavirus. And we actually came up with our, thanks to our wonderful doctor, our own Dr. Crouchy, Dr. Manchester, we came up with all these rules that we had to follow. And then I got calls of the pianist from numerous calls from the zoo. What do we do? What do we do? How do we keep kids safe? What is the most dangerous instrument? If you need to know at the time, it was flute. And just, you know, working with studies and stuff like that. So there is a lot of the, what is the U of R doing? But for things like this, when I talk to my students at RIT, no pressure to you. Oh, cool. What are we doing? This is our thing, right? It's an eclipse. Like, it's not your thing. It's a thing. We should go there. But then they all. I think helps a lot. And then because we are smaller than the U of R, we are about 1,000 people, 1,000 students. I got permission from my dean to really go with this. We have the natural challenges. We're in the middle of the city, and a lot of people don't want to park and dealing with that stuff. We do it all the time. But with funding, we are starting to talk to donors because I don't want my goal to not take away any money from regular funding throughout the school. However, we do, and this is probably just from the arts, we have donors that want specific projects. And labeling, hey, this is Danny Wegman sponsored events, you know, blah, blah, blah. It would be great. And a lot of them are looking for a cool project to put their name on so that they. So maybe you can talk to your financial office, see if there are, you know, ours is like the jazz saxophone player that happens to love astronomy, you know, or something like that. And you never know until you actually ask and talk to them that they might be. So we can buy glasses, so we can pay these musicians. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. And then also talk to people like your version of Deb Ross. So people that might be interested in the community in the Eclipse, but would love to maybe get in on a concert or something like that. You just don't know, so that you don't have to tap your regular resources because all of the country. So, but I would love to talk to U of R and RT and everything, just to see, because we're not going to touch science at the Eastman School of Music. So
with RT, we're doing so much emphasis on performing arts too. If we find a way, especially if with the Eclipse, whatever's happening in the city would be literally right there. What you guys are doing, I think it'd be a lot of fun. Do you know if Easton's going to be part of the cities? Like, what's going to happen now?
Yeah, we're trying to talk a little about that. So the reason I had no idea that a concert could have so much effect. People still ask me about it. Not that other concerts don't take as much effect, but you know, when you perform 80 to 100 times a year, my parents don't remember when I perform, you know. So, but having something like that, and also it's the funny, easy part is for the arts, visual arts, music, anything. They have no idea what's happening. The playlists are out there. You know, that part is actually the easiest part. We just got to pay for it and organize and not conflict with others. That's the big thing.
So just to follow up on that, just so that if in case people don't know, Andy Fragnoi, who is actually on our task force and is involved in education. He's a retired college professor, but he maintains lists. He loves making lists. A list of all sorts of things, but one of them that he does is, you know, literature that talks about astronomy or eclipses, music that talks about astronomy or eclipses. But it's a great resource to be able to do this. So when you're talking about, you know, having literature talk about this or having, you know, I mean, there's all sorts of different ways you can bring this in, but that was what I wanted to do at the zoo. I just couldn't convince the arts and humanities until afterwards when they were like, "Oh, we were so wrong." Yes, I know.
Yeah, that's it. So check back.
I hope I'm retired by then.
I'm an amateur astronomer, and I hear what you guys are talking about. class of people you need in this. What's going to happen 3 days before the eclipse? Several million people who live in the Boston, New York City area are going to say, okay, where's the nearest place where we can get to fidelity? Because the weather is freakishly good. And that's when they're going to make their decision to come. Okay? You may get nothing, it's cloudy here. It may be just your kids in the campus. But experience from the last eclipse, you can get millions coming into this area. And just to give you an idea of some of the crews that we had from the last eclipse, we had people who had planned to dance where they were going to be for the last eclipse. They got there, the weather they said was poor. So they got in their cars and they drove 500 miles that night to a place where it was going to be nice.
So to be fair, it's only amateur astronomers and eclipse chasers that are that dedicated. But yes, you have some people who will make that decision. Now, you are going to get the crowds from those big cities because this is the easiest place for them to get.
Yes.
And so that is true. And that's true, but that's something that not just the universities have to handle, the entire region has to deal with this. And we have, we're getting all along the path. Where I live, we're going to get the dedicated crew because I live in South Texas. And those people who don't have passports and don't want to go into Mexico, they're coming where I am. So, you guys are going to get, but you guys have much more population close by. So you're still going to be inundated. So, I mean, if you look at, like there was the drive maps that Michael Zylo presented, which is, the closest path, there's much more population at this end of the path. Have to worry about it. But again, I think that's where you have lots of campuses. You need to be thinking about how do you work together to be able to accommodate all those people if they come, but also not be disappointed if they do.
Yes, that's actually exactly.
Yeah. Right.
If you promote arrive early, leave late, not everyone's going to come in early, not everyone's going to leave late, but if you can get some people to stay and there's incentive, have a Corona I survived the eclipse party or a concert that night or even the next day, and someone liked it. I compared it to when a plane lands, you either sit there and read or do something or catch up on your email, or you stand up, move 2 steps, and either way, you're going to have to wait 15, 20 minutes for everyone in front of you to get off the plane. So if you position it that way and give people, not everyone can stay or want to, but if you get some to stay. Oh, and by the way, they're going to need a place to stay and food during that time. So it's an economic opportunity.
I feel like in the Rochester thing, to David and your point, Rick, sorry, Deborah, that we can't predict the last insiders. We can't control that. We can't
That's
control
what you need to be afraid.
What our mindset is building something that if we can, like, all right, we're 18,000 students and 4,000 faculty staff. If we can freeze our people and their families in place, at least we can kind of be a sink, and then U of R can be a sink, and then the city events can be a sink, and try to freeze up enough people in place. Because from what I understand from this conference, a lot of people are just over, they're getting in their car no matter what. We can't control that, we can't change it. But if we can get our family and the extended family to stay in Julietta, and your family to stay and U of R's can kind of lock these boxes in, at least we can try to reduce some of the headaches for it. So at least it's not our people that are stuck on this, even though we know that people are just. How just the universities in our region that are all going to be under this, we can all do our little piece of that to try to be able to absorb, if we get a day like this.
You will have a lot of people. But I think that the thing you just said, you have 19 campuses in the region where what Deb was talking about, even if you don't all do the same thing, and it won't be practical for you all to do the same thing. You all have very different campuses and so on, but at least you all know what you're doing and you're able to compare on, oh yeah, we're doing this, and some things will translate and some things won't. And I think that that is gonna help you a lot. You're also gonna have, and this is the bit that's not so much your problem as like traffic, transportation, is it's like this, and people are like, oh, it looks really good, and then cloud sets in. Some of them are then gonna get on the road and go, where are the gaps in the cloud? And that's dangerous.
Yes, that's exactly what happened to us.
We just really quick comment. One of the things we're talking about in New York tourism is Take Tuesday too.
Nice.
So I'd love for that to be a kind of national refrain, right? Colleges and university, everybody that you're looking to attract, and even Take Tuesday too. Alumni who are coming here for this event, Take Tuesday too. Parents who are bringing prospective students for this weekend, Take Tuesday too.
I like that, but something you just said is like, if you know plan events, have those alumni visiting departments and talking to the current students, because you know what? Alumni like getting that wisdom from people who have gone through that program. So if you can coordinate, and this is where, you work with your alumni association, because, and again, where, as faculty, I'm like, why do I need to know about the alumni association? Yeah, I really do. But those sorts of things can really help with adding to that safety that we're talking about. So.
Something else that's a real opportunity is the annular. Even though it's only going to be in New Hampshire, it's only going to be about 20%. Here, I think it's going to be about 35%. But that's a Saturday. That's a great dress rehearsal. Everyone needs glasses to see it. That's the time, test the systems, everything from transportation to emergency. Do we have enough tech? Do we have enough porta potty? Because that you need the glasses. So you head for that event and you're ahead of the game for the total. And we didn't have that in 2017. We didn't have a dress rehearsal. We have a built-in dress rehearsal this time around.
You can rehearse a little, but we need to be a bit careful about that on a couple of different levels. One of the things that happens in astronomy events is that, if you're an amateur astronomer, you're going to love all of these things. You're going to bring out the meteor shower. You're going to love watching the supermoon. You're going to love and go out and watch every single lunar eclipse. I don't even watch lunar eclipses anymore. I hate talking about meteor showers in the press, because you know what? Meteor showers are always disappointing. I even saw one on Mauna Kea and it was disappointing. And people have this idea that it's like a firework and it's going to be this also, and it's like, no, it's not. And so we have to be a little careful about, first of all, the annular eclipse. Yeah, it's really cool. It really is. And we should pull in as many people as possible, but let's not sell it as this is going to be anything like the real thing. The other thing is, because it's not going to be like the real thing, you're not going to have crowds of people from New York City or Boston. You're going to get some, but you're not going to get that many. Okay, so the last one was long enough ago that it probably didn't catch the imagination. I drove my kids from Missouri to New Mexico to see the one in 2012. But we were at El Malpais. I could have made a fortune if I'd actually sold glasses, because I had glasses with me. And nobody was ready. The national park wasn't ready. They knew it was coming, but they weren't ready. But there weren't that many.
You're right. We're more lucky here in New Hampshire because October 14th is right after the leaf peeping season. So we've got tons of people in our state, and we're just encouraging them to stay a few more days and giving them glasses, and we're using those crowds to anticipate the crowd. So I don't know what the foliage is like.
Right. So I'm guessing this area may have similar. I'm not sure I like the term leaf peeping, but I understand. I understand the concept. It just sounds gross. But yes, I understand that here you may well have that same attraction for, that's where you may get people who are like, I really want to go see those fabulous colors, upstate. Oh, let's combine it with that weekend. That's where I think, you up here you may get more. I actually get annularity. But I don't expect it to be huge. expect to have, you know, people from even all over the state come, so. All right, any other questions, comments? Okay, so David Barron asked if we can share the name of the woman from the Eastman School of Music. That is Priscilla Ewan. Hi. And I think you all have the list of attendees, so you should be able to find them.
I'm at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
Oh, it goes without saying, if there's anything RIT can do expertise wise, and just conversations, anything you're doing cool, my contact information is on the list. Happy to be a resource, happy to learn, if you have ideas, or hey, what did your provost think of this? What, anything at all, please. I'm still learning how higher ed works, so anything I can help learn and pass along to you, I'm happy to do it. Happy to be a resource.
So the other thing I just want to mention, and this is going to vary from institution to institution, but NSF put out a dear colleague letter a couple of weeks ago that was about if you already have an NSF National Science Foundation Award, and you can put in a supplement request for outreach. Now, if you want to put in a standalone proposal, it has to actually have solar science or solar eclipse related science in it. But if you already have one, regardless of the topic, so mine are on Stardust, you can put in a supplement. So that is something that, you know, thinking about how that fits together with other things that we're talking about. So for instance, you know, I could imagine someone from physics at U of R working with Priscilla on something that's the crossover between eclipses and music as what they would fund from their supplement. I have a friend who's actually at NTID who is off with his, and he teaches physics. He teaches physics in ASF. You know, I already talked to Carrie Black about, you know, saying he should expect something, but, you know, making some of these connections that allow, you know, for me, it's we have a large unserved community in San Antonio. So let's use that community. But if you have people who have NSF grants of any flavor, you can apply for a supplement for up to 20% of the original award. And so that's a place for university to be thinking about how we pull this in. And, you know, for 2017, I was on a NASA grant that was to do with atmospheric science folks. So we were measuring the changing temperature, wind speed, air pressure across the path within Missouri. But you can think outside of astronomy. There's a lot more science being done than is just astronomy. There was a project that was done in 2017 at Missouri because that was studying bees and actually made it into the New York Times because they showed the bees stop buzzing.
Wow.
But this was a biology entomologist at the university who did that study. Now, we, the AAS, actually funded that study, and it was with elementary school kids. So there's also ways to think outside the box for this piece as well. But that's the piece I think for universities, that there is this opportunity. So if you have people who already have NSF funding, figure out what you can do and put in a proposal.
That's great.
And call Karen. She's here. She's the NSF person who's here. Okay, so last time for the 2017 Eclipse, the AAS got a grant from NSF, which we then re-granted mini grants. It was up to about $3,000, and it didn't have to be an academic institution. Let me just say, we would love to. We are running out of time. The pandemic really messed up our timeline for things. So we know that NSF would like us to do it. We know we like. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was incredibly. We actually funded, we funded 31 projects, both on and off the path, and they were very. So, and like I say, one of them was this bees study, students across the path, not just in Missouri, and so. Priorities sometimes get more. Any other questions from online?
I have a small logistics thing. It is like very small, so it's helpful because to be all of the deadlines. I asked my dean if I could get 5. People, hey, in a year, because when I talk to people about it now, they think cool because they don't remember anything. So if you give them a 1 year out, it feels really good for them to do. Oh, now I'd like to be involved. That's great. Like that's what they actually Deb and Dan set up a nice deadline to have a better idea that April 8th, 2023 started. It's a good time to semester, busy mind, but good mind before they go off for the summer and everything.
So we're planning to do something like just event, different departments, different events, but related to this.
But we should also make sure that we check out what, because NASA is doing this year of the sun thing, you know, they're going to have resources. So it's not like you have to do everything from scratch yourself. There's going to be stuff going on. But we can definitely take it. I believe in reinventing the wheel.
Well, since you're going to be, I had a quick question. Does anybody thinking about connecting? Because we could get just as much interest in solar eclipse as we get in sports. Would that be nice?
We're trying, because April 8th is right near opening day. I'm trying to, no one here from Cleveland, if anyone online, because the Cleveland Guardians do not want to be playing opening day in 2024 in Florida. But there's a TSE going right over their stadium. Now you have to be careful because a lot of stadiums are built to miss the sun, so you got to check it out ahead of time. That's Major League Baseball, and it's easy to throw a Corona around the baseball, and all the other teams could get involved along the totality tab. The second group is the NCAA basketball, because the night before the eclipse, on Sunday, April 7th, 2024, the women's NCAA finals is going in Cleveland, Ohio. So whoever set that up is amazing. And the night after the eclipse, Monday, April 8th, 2024, the men's NCAA final is going on. So anyone with connections to NCAA basketball should have them throw a Corona around the basketball. And it's March Madness, but it's also Eclipse Madness. And the third group is the NCAA Frozen Four. And they oftentimes play in Buffalo. And again, you throw a Corona around a puck. So there are 3 great opportunities right there, and all the junior teams and everything else, because no one yet has a patent on the sun, moon, or earth. Everyone can throw a Corona around a hockey puck, a basketball, and baseball, but we have to get through them soon because those schedules are set up a year and a half in advance.
That professional hockey will be in the playoffs. And so the Blue Cross Arena downtown here, which sponsors the Amherst, they were unable to say Friday and Saturday right before the eclipse, we couldn't reserve the arena because it could be hockey playoffs. But we have Sunday and Monday. So they have secured that for this because they won't be hockey playoffs, just to give you guys some context for whoever has professional hockey.
Okay, well, I think we're pretty much out of time. Thanks, everybody. And I think, you know, part of it is also making networks. So feel free to reach out to me. And I will connect you with my friend.
Thanks so much, Chris and Pouya. That was great.
Okay, this session is ending. Bye, everybody.
Wonderful.
Very much.